So today we will be taking a look at the SCHACTER and Singer study. This is another study that is part of the biological approach in the AS Psychology syllabus. So the name of the study is Social, Physiological, and Cognitive Determinants of Emotion. Basically, we are going to be looking at these three factors and how they affect what emotion or what emotional state you are in. I find it to be a pretty interesting study, so let's get started. So, basic introduction or the basis of the study is the two-factor theory. The two-factor theory was developed by researchers SCHACHTER and Singer. So, according to the two-factor theory, physiological arousal is part of an emotional experience. So an emotional experience requires two things: physiological arousal and cognitions, external cognitions. So when the brain experiences an emotion and it is unable to label that physiological arousal, it will look for external cues. It will look for external stimulation to explain or to label that arousal or that experience. This need to basically label it and to look like outside of your own self to label it is called the evaluative needs. Again, the evaluative needs are basically like when you do not have an immediate explanation for your bodily state and you search for an explanation externally. This all happens consciously, so your brain inadvertently assumes that you are feeling what others around you are feeling or what others in the social setting are doing if you are unable to label your own emotions. Now you can imagine there would be a few misinterpretations of emotions that happen easily, and these misinterpretations can cause long-term distress, misconceptions, and miscommunications within people and can make therapy pretty difficult, I believe. So, aims and predictions. There have not been many studies that have explored a similar concept, as this two-factor theory is quite novel. So the main aim of the study now is to test the two-factor theory of emotion. There are, however, three hypotheses, and these are directional hypotheses or one-tailed ones, which means not only do they predict a significant difference, they also predict the direction or the nature of the differences. So the first hypothesis claims that if a participant is in a state of physiological arousal where no immediate explanation is given, there will be evaluative needs that arise inside him, and they will end up labeling them in terms of the cognitions that are available to them externally. So, and we will move on later to what the explanations may be. The second hypothesis claims that if a participant is in a state of physiological arousal for which they have already a perfectly rational or reasonable explanation, they will not have any evaluative needs and will not take on or look for the cognitions around them to label their physiological arousal because they already know or have the inclination of why it's happening, so they won't look for an external way to explain it. Alright? The third hypothesis claims that given the same cognitive surroundings, an individual will react emotionally only to the extent of the physiological arousal. So this is referring to a placebo group, the group that will experience no physiological arousal that is manipulated by us. So we are saying that people in this group will not have any evaluative needs or will not take on the cognition surrounding them because they have no physiological arousal to explain. So I'll repeat the first one. So the first hypothesis says that if there is physiological arousal without us having an explanation for it, we will have evaluative needs. Second one says if there is physiological arousal with an appropriate explanation, we will not have any need to evaluate it, label it. Third, if there is no physiological arousal, we will not experience emotion. We will not react very emotionally. This is, again, according to the two-factor theory, where the two factors are emotion and cognitive or stimulating surroundings. Now, we move on to the general details of the study. So the IV is, there are actually 3 IVs and they can get quite confusing to keep track of, but I will try my best to make them as easy as possible. So one of the IVs is the presence or the absence of physiological arousal. So whether or not they get injected with the arousing drug. Second is the explanation of bodily states, so what we tell them about their side effects. And third is anger/euphoria social condition. So what social condition we put them in, surroundings, that is also another condition. And dependent variable, the thing we measure, is the participant's behavior and mood. This is collected by self-reports and observations. What type of self-report and observation? We will find that out later. The method of research is lab experiment, and the experiment design is independent measures. Independent measures is the experimental design where you only participate in each level of the IV once. For example, if you are part of the group that has received adrenaline, you cannot also be part of the group that has not. And if you are part of the group that is in the anger condition, you cannot also be part of the group that was in the euphoria condition. So the sample we used here, it's quite peculiar. It's 185 male students at the University of Minnesota. They were studying, all of them were studying an introduction to psychology course, and 90% of them were from an experiment pool in the university, and they received course credit in their final examinations for the participation. So this is now we move on to the general procedure of the study. This is the adrenaline drug that they did use to incite physiological arousal in some of our participants. They use this exact dosage, so this is 1 cubic milliliter. So the participants were all told that they were there to test the effects of a vitamin supplement called Suproxen on their vision. Now, why I have highlighted Suproxen in yellow is because it's a fake. Suproxen is not a real thing, it does not exist. It is a name we have given, the fake name we have given the injection that we will give them. And we are telling them a false aim, so this is 100% deception. We are telling them a false aim that states that we are here to measure the effects of this made-up drug on their vision and visual abilities. So each of the participants were taken to a private room and then they were asked for their consent to be injected with Suboxone. And out of the 185 participants, only one did not consent, so he was let go, but he still did receive course credit, as is the ethical nature of many of these experiments. The rest of the 184 participants were independently administered with Suproxen, or what we are about to now know as epinephrine. So the physician entered the room, they took their pulse, and then right after injected them and repeated the instructions to them. And they kept claiming that it was a harmless vitamin compound. So, injection conditions. There is a difference between injection conditions and social conditions. So, the injection conditions, all 4 of these conditions are part of either one of the 2 social conditions. So, the first injection condition is the epinephrine informed group. So, people in the epinephrine informed group were given an injection of 1 cubic centimeter or milliliter of adrenaline bitrate. So, epinephrine is, again, it is also known as adrenaline. And they were told the side effects that they might experience. They were told the real side effects, such as pounding heartbeat, flushed or warm face, and shaking hands or tremors. These are real side effects that follow an epinephrine dosage. They were not told that the drug is epinephrine, however. We are still maintaining that Suboxone lie. and they were told that these effects would last approximately 15 to 20 minutes. This was the condition in which we expected them to have no evaluative needs. Now comes in our second hypothesis. So, because they already have a perfectly reasonable explanation for their physiological arousal, i.e., the suproxen, as we say, so they will have no need to look to evaluate this physiological arousal with external stimulation that is available to them. So they will not take on the mood that surrounds them. So that is our first condition. The second condition, it's more of a control. So it is an epinephrine misinformed. Now, there's a difference between a control condition and a control measure. So a control condition is basically a group where there has been no level of the IV administered. A control is done to improve the validity or reliability of your research. So this is done as a control. So what was done is that this group of participants is given the same exact injection of epinephrine or adrenaline. However, they were told incorrect side effects. They were told that they might experience numbed feet, an itching sensation all over their body, and a headache. Now, of course, none of these symptoms accompany a dosage of epinephrine. So this is, again, technically a control, not a control condition. We use to validate, to see whether the appropriateness of the explanation we give them mattered. We would expect their results to be similar to the epinephrine ignorant condition. So again, we have given them false explanation. We have given them an incorrect explanation. So the side effects that they will experience, which will be these, we have not told them that these will occur. So we are hoping that they will, So we are hoping that they will evaluate these side effects according to the cognitions that are externally available to them. And our third condition is epinephrine ignorant. So this condition was given the epinephrine injection same as the others, but it was not told anything about side effects at all. It was simply conveyed to it that it's a harmless drug, it will cause nothing, and there will be a vision test afterwards, but they were not at all told about any side effects. This is where our first hypothesis comes in. So they will definitely experience physiological arousal, palpitations, tremors, such as that follow epinephrine dosage, but they will have no, or we hope that they will have no appropriate explanation for them because we have not given them one. So they will definitely try to evaluate those physiological arousals by the external situation available to them and explain their bodily state throughout the surroundings. The fourth and final induction condition is our placebo group. So again, the placebo refers to basically, letting someone think you are administering them with something, but in reality it is not. So this group was given an injection of a saline solution, which is basically a salt water solution. It's substance your body naturally produces, and an injection of a saline solution causes absolutely no reaction in your body, no physiological arousal at all. And we treated them the same as the epinephrine ignorant, as in we did not give them any explanation of any physiological arousal that obviously will not happen. This is referring to our third hypothesis. We will expect this group to only have an emotional reaction to the extent of their physiological arousal. So virtually no evaluative needs because there will be no physiological arousal to evaluate. Now, the next we move on to the manipulation of emotional states, also known as the social. So, if you go back to the name of the study, it's physiological, cognitive, and social determinants of emotion. This is where the social part comes in. So, cognitive is what we take away from the situation. Physiological is the presence or the absence of the arousal that we have injected to them, and this is the social part comes in. So, because in real life people do use comparisons to others when they are evaluating their own emotions. So, imagine that you are in an exam center and you are experiencing a flushed face, you're tense, but you do not know why. And you will look around you and you will see other people biting their lips, they're worried, they're looking here and there, and you would assume that you are nervous because you can identify the fact that they are nervous. This is a very common occurrence, and again, you can see how it may lead to misinterpretation of emotional states.